lot of explosive language being used by politicians in many of these states, California, Minnesota. We got folks taking office in New York City, Seattle, the new mayor, openly declaring their progressive socialist ideology. America right now is in a civil war, a cultural civil war, without a doubt. Now a legal civil war. Thankfully, so far, it's been a cold civil war, but it looks like it's going to go kinetic if people don't wake up and understand what's happening. That's exactly what our enemies want. Foreign enemies. They want chaos in the streets of America. So we're distracted militarily. Our leaders are distracted, and then they can move, well, on the global world stage. But very few people understand this worldview war that's taking shape, much less that much of the media has been taken over by those cultural Marxists, which is actually why Worldview Tube is growing, not because we just report the news, but because we bring context, reason, logic, understanding history, and a Christian worldview. These are indeed perilous times. The Bible said they were coming, and now they are here. But as we always say, worldviews matter. Ideas have consequences, and now we're seeing those consequences work their way out right in the streets of America. We'll be right back after this short break. Would you like to gain access to 36 years of Christian worldview programming, news and information, all my books, ebooks, documentaries, and more? Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Understand the times, where we've been and where we're going. Worldviewtube.com/vault. I take Bella Grace each and every day. It has 3 powerful ingredients, and it has 80 clinical trials behind it. The results for me personally and many in our viewing audience has been amazing. Check it out, melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Welcome back from the break. Thanks for being with us tonight and every night. And thank you for your patience. We're still trying to repair the damage that was done when a company without any notification turned off major services. Our IT guy says we even submitted a service ticket. They didn't respond. They just deleted the service ticket. They've done, well, in some ways, uncalculable amounts of damage to our website. And we've had to spend now going on 2 weeks plus repairing it. So thank you for your patience as we try to get it all put back together. And again, I think it's more of the spiritual attack that our network is constantly under. Hardly a day goes by we don't deal with something that is a real irritant, much less a crisis. So thank you for your prayers. And thank you for your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for all your support, prayer support, kind letters, Christmas cards, notes, and your financial support. So many of you supported us with our end of the year giving campaign. And again, I want to make sure you understand how much we appreciate you. I don't know what we would do without you. Well, I do know we wouldn't be around. We'd have a very hard time surviving as an organization. I mean, how else would we survive? We are a listener-supported network. So thank you to all of you that took part in our end of the year giving campaign through our foundation at worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you to all of you that also are using the services and the products of our different sponsors. It takes this entire team between our foundation and our other sponsors to keep this network going, growing, and to have the budgets to deal with crises like having major services turned off that require almost complete rebuilds at a very high price, by the way, because these IT guys that are rebuilding this, they don't work for free, nor should they. So thank you. We are a listener-supported network, and I want you to know that we hear you. We hear you in your generosity and your kind letters and emails and text messages and voicemails. So thank you. And thank you for your support at worldviewfoundation.com. Explosive allegations are emerging from Minnesota, and they raise serious questions about government accountability and institutional corruption. According to Front Page Magazine, officials within Minnesota and the Department of Education are accused of falsifying documents in order to cover up massive grant fraud that involved millions of taxpayer dollars. The article details how records were allegedly altered or fabricated to conceal improper payments that are tied to government programs that had already been flagged for irregularities. Front Page Mag argues that this represents more than bureaucratic incompetence. It suggests intentional deception designed to shield officials from scrutiny. The case, sadly, it fits a broader pattern in which government agencies resist transparency. They protect internal actors and marginalize whistleblowers rather than correcting the misconduct. If proven true, document falsification would elevate the scandal from mismanagement to potential criminal activity. Again, from a worldview standpoint, this story highlights the danger of unchecked bureaucracies. Agencies become self-policing entities, well, accountability collapses. Election integrity remains one of the most volatile and unresolved issues in American life. According to Geller report, Republican leadership has repeatedly failed to implement meaningful election reforms, even as Donald Trump continues to demand voter ID laws and transparent safeguards. The article argues that GOP leaders have prioritized political convenience over public confidence, leaving voters increasingly distrustful of the electoral process. President Trump has warned that without voter ID and clear verification procedures, elections risk becoming administrative exercises rather than expressions of the people's will. The failure to act, well, it has consequences when citizens lose faith in elections. Next, what happens is, well, there's an erosion of legitimacy, and the democratic systems, they're weakened. And from a worldview perspective, secure elections, they're not partisan demands. They are fundamental to our Republican form of government. So this is indeed a national security issue. A troubling economic signal is flashing, and it's one the mainstream media is largely minimizing. According to the Washington Examiner, private sector hiring has dropped to its lowest level since 2011, a period still defined by the aftermath of the Great Recession. This data point matters far more than headline unemployment numbers because hiring, well, that reflects what businesses expect about the future, not what politicians want voters to believe in the present tense. The article explains that private employers, they are significantly slowing the pace of new hiring as they confront a convergence of economic pressures, persistent inflation, higher interest rates, and of course, increased regulatory burdens and growing uncertainty about consumer demand. When businesses stop hiring, well, it signals fear, not optimism. Economists, they're quoted in the report warning that hiring freezes often precede layoffs. Companies first pause expansion, then reduce hours, and only later resort to job cuts. In other words, hiring slowdowns are indeed an early warning indicator of deeper economic trouble that lies ahead. The Washington Examiner notes that while government and healthcare sectors have continued adding jobs, the productive private sector, that engine that actually generates wealth, is pulling back. And this, of course, creates a distorted picture of economic health, where job growth exists on paper, but lacks real sustainability. The article also points out that small and mid-sized businesses are being hit especially hard. These firms, they face higher borrowing costs, and that's, of course, due to higher interest rates and rising labor costs. And, of course, then you add in the shrinking profit margins. And unlike large corporations, these smaller businesses, well, they lack the capital buffers to absorb prolonged uncertainty. So this slowdown, it undermines consumer confidence, it undermines household stability, and, of course, the long-term economic resilience is not there. And when hiring stalls, wage growth, of course, slows. And when wages slow, spending contracts. And when spending contracts, the entire economy begins to tighten. The report challenges officials when it comes to their narrative that portray the economy as strong or resilient. Many Americans know this is not true. And frankly, they're getting frustrated when they hear our leaders telling us how inflation is down, the economy is great, we're in the golden age. No, it's not strong and it's not resilient. Not in their minds, not at their kitchen tables. Instead, what all this signals is that there are structural weaknesses, and they're being masked by selective statistics and short-term government spending. Of course, this raises deeper issues. Economies that are built on debt, monetary manipulation, or shall we call it inflation, quantitative easing, bureaucratic intervention. Often what? Well, runs into reality. And you cannot indefinitely sustain so-called prosperity by redefining indicators and ignoring fundamentals. You don't have long-term prosperity through the debasement of your own currency, the hidden tax of inflation. And Americans, they know this every time they go to the grocery store. As Iran's streets erupt with protest and the regime responds with lethal force, an alternative vision for the country's future is indeed gaining attention. According to World Israel News, Iran's exiled prince has made it clear that Iranians themselves, not the United States or foreign militaries, will bring down the Islamic Republic. His message is aimed at both the Iranian people and at Western policymakers who are indeed tempted to repeat the mistakes of regime change wars. Pahlavi, the prince, he argues that the Islamic regime has lost all of its moral legitimacy. He says the widespread protests that are now spanning much of the country indeed proves that the people no longer fear the clerical establishment the way they once did. When fear collapses, authoritarian regimes enter the most dangerous phase. In the article, the prince emphasizes that sustainable change cannot be imposed from the outside. Instead, it must emerge from within Iranian society through mass civil resistance, defections, and the eventual breakdown of regime cohesion. What makes his remarks especially notable is his proposal for a future relationship with Israel. The prince has called for a Cyrus Accord. Of course, that's named after Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity. He frames this not as a symbolic gesture, but as a declaration that a post-regime Iran could indeed reject Islamic anti-Semitism and pursue peaceful coexistence. World Israel News reports that the prince sees Iran's natural alignment as cultural and historical, not ideological. He argues that the Islamic Republic hijacked Persian identity and replaced it with revolutionary Islamic hostility to both Israel and the West. The article also highlights the prince's warning that the current regime will attempt to survive by escalating violence internally and externally. When regimes feel concerned, they often lash out abroad to distract from domestic collapse, as I've already referenced tonight. From a strategic standpoint, this is crucial. Weakening Iran does not automatically mean a safer Middle East. It can mean unpredictability, proxy escalation, and reckless decision-making by leaders who believe they have nothing to lose. So the message by the prince, it underscores a key reality. Iran's future will be decided not in Washington or Jerusalem, but in Tehran, in major cities across Iran. As, of course, many, sadly, on the streets of Iran, dozens, have now died in the revolt. Well, now it is time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. Tonight, before we conclude, I need to step away from headlines and honor a man whose influence shaped my life and this broadcast more than most people will ever know. My dear friend Michael Reagan, he passed away on January 4th. I did a full 30-minute tribute to him last night, but I want to do that right here on this broadcast as well. Michael was not just the son of a great president. He was a man of faith, great conviction, and generosity, and humility. In 1993, when my second book came out, I mailed it to talk show hosts all across the country. Michael, he received it, and he graciously invited me onto his broadcast, and he opened the door in many ways for me. He put me on his national broadcast, and then he made me his education reporter. Then he trusted me as a guest host of his syndicated program. He even called me on his way to his father's house when President Reagan was passing away and said, I'm going to have to take some time away from the airwaves and be involved in my father's funerals, both in California, D.C., and back to California again. And would you sit in for me? I was honored to sit in as the guest host for the Michael Reagan Show for about 2 weeks, that week during which Michael was involved in the services for his father, and then the next week as he was, I think, having a hip replacement. Mike trusted me. And because he trusted me, it opened up a lot of doors. When I hosted the Michael Reagan Show for the first time in 1995, someone by the name of Vic Eliason heard me on the radio. That connection led directly to VCY America. He was their director. He called up a friend of mine, Dick Bott of Bott Radio Network, and said, "Do you know this guy, Brannon Howse, hosting the Michael Reagan show? He's a young guy. Sounds like he's a believer, a Christian. I should get a hold of him." Dick Bott said to Mr. Eliason, "Yeah, I just had breakfast with he and his wife. Here's his phone number." He called me and I began to, be a guest on Mr. Eliason's program, Crosstalk. And then I began to become a guest host of Crosstalk. And today I'm heard every day on the VCY America radio network and their 74 stations. I've been working with him now for 30 years. Michael Reagan opened that door. Michael didn't just give me airtime. He gave me opportunity, mentorship, and he was giving me confidence when I was just 26 years old. He wrote the forewords to several of my books. He sat at my dinner table. He was kind and gracious and attentive to my children. He celebrated their growth. And one day, Logan went from being a little 3-year-old sitting on Michael Reagan's lap to actually producing Michael on my broadcast. Michael Reagan lived his life, pouring his life into others. He believed liberty was, one generation away from extinction, just like his dad. And he spent his life fighting to prevent that. He spent his life pouring into others the importance of life and liberty and family and faith. He spent a big chunk of his life defending his father's patriotic worldview. Michael was 80 years old. He was surrounded by family, and he leaves behind a legacy of faith and freedom and faithfulness. And all I can say is, Michael, thank you for your generosity. You opened so many doors for me. The first show I ever hosted was yours. I thanked him many times on the air, and I'm going to thank him here again for giving me opportunity. That does it for the Worldview Report tonight. Thank you for watching and for supporting worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. May God save America, and condolences to Colleen, Cameron, and Ashley Reagan. Take care.
This is Brannon Howse Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Wednesday night, January 7th, 2026. We're going to be joined by former U.S. Congressman Jason Lewis in just one moment. Minneapolis became the spot for, a lady losing her life today. I guess about 37 years old. Apparently, she accelerated toward an ICE agent. He felt his life was at risk, I'm assuming, and he used deadly force. She was killed, sadly. And now the governor of Minnesota is calling for people to get into the streets, not in just Minneapolis, but in Chicago, Los Angeles, and other places. Is this some of the organized chaos and confusion and violence that enemies, foreign and domestic, need, again, for their political narrative, but also to bring that chaos to America inside our borders that can then be exploited by our enemies outside our borders? Have us distracted while maybe China goes after Taiwan or Japan or who knows what. There's so much going on, and it's all connected. Many of the same players, internally, externally. We're going to talk about that with not only former Congressman Jason Lewis tonight. He was a congressman for Minnesota. But we're going to talk also with Alex Newman. And then, of course, Annie Cyrus to bring an update on Iran. The prince, he is the Shah's son, saying to the U.S., stay out of this. The Iranian people will take care of this. But there are people wrapped up in the GOP and the RNC and the Republican Party that are pushing a group that we've discussed before known as MEK. They're running under a new name now that sounds a little bit more like, hey, we're just for freedom in Iran. But this group, MEK, apparently all they are is a Marxist Islamic group. It's Marxism and Islam together. And sadly, I have to report tonight, Annie's telling me that people like Rudy Giuliani are promoting them. She's kind of frustrated. We've always enjoyed interviewing the mayor and having him on the broadcast several times. So, yeah, this is a little concerning. We'll hear what Annie has to say about that. And potentially this weekend, some major events could be going down in Iran. But the events all depend on how President Trump responds. And speaking of President Trump, what does David Pine think about taking this Russian oil tanker that just got taken by us? What does he think of that? And what does the average MAGA person now think about the Trump administration? He's been in office now almost a year, coming up here around the third week of January, and many of the base are frustrated. We're seeing it in videos on social media. What is the likelihood that President Trump is indeed impeached in the House, convicted in the Senate, maybe removed from office, and President J.D. Vance walks into the Oval Office? We'll talk to David Pine about that. And then, of course, the history of the U.S. running drugs. We go after Maduro for drugs, but what about our own government? Hasn't the CIA and our own government been notorious for running drugs? We'll get into that tonight. And then what about the charges against Maduro? Has our own government rewritten some of those charges? Oops. That's not the truth. Take those out of the charging papers. Oof. That's not good. Well, it's good for Maduro and his defense attorney if he wants to use that. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of confusion tonight. So, Jason Lewis, David Pine, Alex Newman, Annie Cyrus, and you. Glad you're with us tonight. And if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support. Our website went down for a little bit tonight, again. We're under constant attack. We're constantly now, it seems like, under attack. Logan's like, what a day it's been. I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? What a year it's been. We're only 7 days in, and we're under constant attack now, folks. Right before we went into the new year, our website went down. Stuff disrupted due to a vendor. Now another vendor. Another vendor we went to get away from the vendor that shut us off is apparently now doing something. I don't know what's going on, but all I can say is thank you for your patience, and will you pray for us? This gets awfully frustrating from our standpoint. I know from yours as well. So pray for us that we can get this all sorted out and keep the website up, because it's wearing us out. It's emotionally draining. And it also distracts us from all the other work we need to be doing, studying and preparing and bringing you the news and information. And yet I've spent so many hours today just simply on administration work, just administrative work related to keeping this website and organization up. And so it drains us. By the end of the night, we are all just exhausted. So pray that this will stop and that 2026 can be a year that's not like the first 7 days have been thus far. But thank you, all of you, for your prayers and your generous support. Thank you to all of you that have been so generous to us in your support in our end of the year campaign. And this is exactly why we have to have it, because we're spending an awful lot of money with programmers and IT guys trying to fight off this nonstop problem that we're having and keep the system up. And it takes a lot of money to keep a network like this going. So thank you again, all of you, for your support. Another way you can support us, of course, is by going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Don't forget about Bella Melts. These are selling like crazy. Melissa takes them. I take them. They are going to naturally, all natural, stimulate. And it's not candy. Dolly's got her head lifted up off the floor. I think I'm going to give her some candy. It's not a treat or candy for dogs. It is an all-natural supplement to stimulate your GLP-1. All-natural stimulation of your own body's GLP-1. So Bella Melts, they're very popular and have a lot of health benefits according to the studies we've read and the doctors we've interviewed. And of course, also don't forget, I take the elixir each and every day. I think you should start 2026 by getting on that elixir every day for 90 days. And then you tell me, because we have so many of you that get a subscription to that and you keep getting it because it works. Otherwise, you'd stop getting it. My hands are not cracked and bleeding anymore. Great hair growth. I don't have the acid indigestion, the acid reflux I had. I haven't taken a Pepcid since December of 2023, since getting on Bella Grace. There's so much I can say. The elixir is wonderful. The Bella Melts. Melissa loves the skincare and more. At melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. You also find it at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com sponsors. You know, I do the Gatatana every day. That's the phytoplankton. Dolly gets a half a scoop on her food every morning. I personally do that. You'll find that at MelissaHouseGPA.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. We've also just announced last night with Dr. Lana the new phytoplankton soap and cream. Soap, the phytoplankton soap, as well as the body cream. You'll find all of that at MelissaHouseGPA.com. Hey, don't forget about getting your own satellite phone. Should the cell towers go down, should there be disruption of our power grid, you can still use a satellite phone. I have a satellite phone. This is my satellite phone. And the minutes roll over every month. So I have a lot of minutes waiting for me. That's the great thing. I can text off of this as well. Get your own satellite phone. Get your family member one if they don't have one. Your child that's away at college, maybe you have one and your spouse travels, they have one. Or if you want to get them a bivvy, they can use their phone. Even if the cell towers are down, they can use their cell phone to compose the text and then send it through the bivvy to the satellite down to you who have the satellite phone who can text back. So you have the option of a bivvy or satellite phones. All those are at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. They also have the generator, the solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400. They have the solar generators, the beanies that knock down the electromagnetic force, and the bulletproof backpacks. So many great products there at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. We also have, of course, the water filters at worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. Start 2026 by not drinking chemicals, not drinking people's pharmaceuticals that have been flushed down the toilet and then put into the water supply. Oh, yeah, you can check all that out. Go check that out, and you'll see I'm speaking truth. Use the water filter I use in my kitchen and on my shower, and it's the water that I not only drink, make my coffee with, but also give to my beloved fur babies. That includes Dolly. So, worldviewwater.net. These are all great ways to support your health and us at the same time with each purchase. So thank you for doing that. All right. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors will help you find all of them. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Join me now is former U.S. Congressman and Senator. Let me do that again. Ready? Joining me now is former U.S. Congressman from Minnesota. He ran for U.S. Senate. I personally think he won that election, but that's just me. He now resides in a sane state, the state of Florida. He may be very glad to be out of Minnesota. It's just seemed, I'm glad. I lived up there for far too many years. I'm glad. I got out 21 years ago this March. And down here in Tennessee, it's much more sane. He joins us now because there's a lot going on there with the fraud. And then sadly today, a lady lost her life. At the hands of ICE, but it seems to be because she was running a vehicle toward the guy. So we'll show the footage. It's a real mess all the way around. It's a PR problem, and it seems to be extending the whole a move toward a civil war. That seems to be, Jason, welcome, Happy New Year, it seems to be the civil war is being pushed by local, state, and I would say community organizers from California to Oregon to New York City. We're going to take your property. White people are going to lose their property. And then you add this into the equation, and I'm not blaming anyone yet. It's too early. I'm just saying all of this seems to be setting the stage for what I think the enemy's foreign and domestic wants is massive chaos in the U.S. and maybe civil war for the enemies of America, Russia, Iran, et cetera, China, to move, whether it's Taiwan, Japan, this is really turning into a very messy beginning of 2026. Let's just let you go there.
Well, it's getting more insane all the time. And the real danger is not just the organizers being funded by somebody like George Soros. I mean, the Open Society Network has got their fingerprints all over these dark money nonprofits throughout the world and in the United States. Bricks don't just appear in the middle of George Floyd riots 5 years ago. But what's worse than that, Brannon, is elected officials openly engaged in sedition.
Yeah.
They are interfering with the constitutional duty of federal officers who are doing everything by the book. There is nothing illegal about sending ICE agents anywhere to deport illegal aliens. That is a federal function. States don't do that. Only the federal government has the power over immigration. So what these people are doing, from Tim Walz to Jacob Fry, is they are engaged in a form of sedition by deliberately encouraging the obstruction of federal justice. And that's how a civil war begins. It's how it began in 2020 when they encouraged open rioting. You're seeing it now. Walz obviously trying to deflect from future criminal probes into his activity, but so is Fry for that matter. They are engaged in a civil war already. And now what do you see? You see a tragedy today, but it was fomented by the powers that be that I told everybody about 5 years ago when I was running for the Senate, that I warned people repeatedly about it, that I wrote in my book, Party Animal, The Truth About President Trump, Power Politics, and the Partisan Press. You have a Democrat media complex in this society that doesn't give a damn about the Constitution if they don't like when someone enforces it. In particular on illegal immigration. It'd be an easy way to stop all of this. Let the federal government use its constitutional duty to enforce the borders. It's over. Then it's done. And they are not.
And look at this headline article by my friend Daniel Greenfield. Minnesota Department fake documents to cover up grant fraud. It looks like this thing was really being done by community organizations, probably politicians very aware, government agencies very aware. That's what it seems to show, right? I mean, this is criminal activity, right?
The lily white, self-loathing Lutherans in the bowels of the DHS, in the bowels of the woke movement, they are the ones that manned government. It's a little bit like Joe Biden. Nobody believes Joe is running the government. So who was it? It was the deep state. And that's who's running Minnesota. And not only did they cover up the paperwork on these grant applications that had no description of what the grant recipients were doing, but now we're getting all sorts of reports from testimony today in front of Jimmy Comer's oversight committee that employees who wanted to be whistleblowers, who were telling people about this, were threatened, quote unquote, veiled threats of military surveillance. Are you kidding me? For a Department of Human Services employee in the Twin Cities, a veiled threat of military intelligence monitoring you because you're a whistleblower? This is what Animal Farm and Orwell was talking about. And it's very, very scary, but it was bound to happen after 2020. I hate to say it, but it was bound to happen because when you did not heed warnings from people like me, people like Walz, and really all the Democrats in Minnesota, put that state on a collision course with the Constitution, with law and order, with the federal government doing their duty, with free speech, you name it. And now the reckoning is here.
And now the reckoning is here. So where do you think this is going? Do you think there's an off-ramp for civil war, or do you really think it's going to go hot?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends if Minnesotans finally stand up and say enough. The fly in the ointment has always been people in Minnesota not willing to engage the radical left that was taking over. Groups like the Minnesota Business Partnership that went along with it. NPR, the Star Tribune, the Minnesota media. Certainly, you had a few DHS employees that have done more in a couple of months than all the other institutions in Minnesota, including the churches, by the way, ever could think of doing. They just rolled over like sheep and they said, may I have another, sir? And the question becomes, are they willing to fight back now? And I don't know the answer to that. So far, the answer's been no.
Let's go real quick in the remaining moments because I know you're on a tight schedule. What do you make of Venezuela? Now we have grabbed a tanker that I guess was supposedly a Russian tanker. What do you make of all this?
Well, it's a Monroe Doctrine redux here. I mean, this is what, for a president that didn't want foreign conflicts from Greenland to Venezuela, we're sure getting a lot of them, but they do have one distinct characteristic. They are close to home. And what Trump is moving away from, it seems to me, is this tripwire in Europe. And by the way, a European Union that does not believe in free speech, that wants to put bases in Ukraine, that is engaged in all sorts of nefarious activities. Trump is saying, no, that's over. That's a Cold War anachronism. We're now concerned with our sphere of influence in our hemisphere, and we are going to keep it. And that's very much like the Monroe Doctrine, very much like Teddy Roosevelt. Will he overstep his bounds? I suppose at times he will, but that's entirely different than plunging in to non-Christian countries in the Middle East thinking you can nation build. It's an entirely different enterprise.
Any other issue you want to bring to the attention that maybe you're writing about at Substack before you go?
Well, I mean, we just put our post at jasonlewis.substack.com about my warning in 2018 in front of at the Ed and Workforce Committee when I had heard the testimony of then HHS Secretary Azar. And we warned in 2018, and it's there at jasonlewis.substack.com, that there is a massive fraud happening in Minneapolis or Minnesota right now. In those days, it was only $100 million with childcare. I asked the secretary to call it out. We wanted to eliminate the block grants that was funding it. I said, if it isn't stopped, it'll blow up to be the greatest scandal imaginable. Thinking about that, that was 7 years in the hearing, Ed and Workforce hearing with the HHS secretary. Nobody listened. We lost the midterms, and the Democrat congressional delegation from Minnesota made certain the issue was dropped. Here we are 7 years later, and we've got $9 billion in fraud. If you want to see it, go to jasonlewis.substack.com.
All right, Jason, as always, thank you for being with us. We need to get you back on more regularly long term. I know you're on a crunch tonight, but thank you for being with us.
All right, Brannon. Thank you, sir.
Jason Lewis checking in, jasonlewis.substack.com. Check out his site, jasonlewis.substack.com. We'll be right back. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com. Joining me now is David Pine. David's got several good tweets out today. Here's one of them. The GOP is definitely going to lose control of the U.S. House of Representatives by a large margin, and Trump is going to get impeached a third time in 2027, this time on solid grounds for Israel, Mossad, Jeffrey Epstein's sex ring cover-up, and his unconstitutional war on Venezuela. Unless Trump stops trying to start World War III, congressional Republicans should join Democrats in voting to impeach and remove him from office so Vice President J.D. Vance can serve out the rest of his term of office and go back to putting America first and fulfill Trump's promise to prevent, not provoke, an unnecessary nuclear war with Russia, China, Iran. You know, really what I wish, David, is that you would just really tell us what you think. Come on, quit beating around the bush.
Hey, Brandon, great to be with you today.
You too.
Yeah, it's the news keeps coming. It's an eventful week here, but this is the first time that I've openly considered impeachment for Trump. I think that he's just going off the rails lately. I mean, obviously we have a lot to talk about with the other tweets as well, but J.D. Vance, the big story that I saw today was that Vice President J.D. Vance was not in the room when the attack was taking place against Maduro and Venezuelan forces in Caracas. He was not allowed to be in the Situation Room, so to speak, at Mar-a-Lago, makeshift Situation Room. He was not standing behind President Trump during his press conference that morning. It was held at 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. And I don't think that was because of J.D. Vance's choice. I think he likely had tried to persuade President Trump not to stage the attack, to allow diplomacy to progress, to pursue the Richard Grenell option, which was to negotiate Maduro's peaceful transfer of power, along the lines that he had stated. and Trump decided to end diplomacy and keep Vice President Vance and National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard out of the decision-making process.
Yeah, well, it's only Wednesday. We've been back 3 days now. I'm already exhausted. I mean, this has been a crazy news cycle for last 3 days. I mean, not to mention what was going on the 10 days we were off, but then trying to get back on the air, catch up, and then everything that just keeps happening. It's coming at us so fast we can hardly cover it all, to be honest with you. So I did find it odd that J.D. Vance seemed to not be there. I heard some pundits trying to say, well, they're trying to keep the president and vice president from being in the same location too much. I'm like, I'm not buying that. Not with the ability and the safety and everything we have going on. I'm not buying any of that. But, I think what you brought up is very interesting. Well, let's switch gears real quick. Let's go, before we get to the Russian oil tanker, let's go to Greenland. You also put out today, at this point, this article points out the U.S. could conquer Greenland in less time than it took us to bomb Caracas, capture and kidnap Venezuela's president and first lady by occupying Greenland's capital of Nuuk in a half an hour and raising the U.S. flag. There's no way the UK or Denmark would make good on their threats to resist us. It would be a fait accompli. Do you think this is something that's good? Are you for us taking Greenland? And if so, I'm guessing it's because you realize the national security strategy and I guess the vital importance of that area, right?
Yeah, I'm for taking Greenland for a number of reasons. Greenland does have a strategic location. It would add a tremendous amount of territory to the U.S. I'm a nationalist. I'm a conservative nationalist, and there's just not a lot. There's not a lot of people. If there were 10 million people in Greenland, I would want to pursue a more negotiated kind of Canada route. Where we don't engage in any military action or threaten military action, but it's basically uninhabited, and the people aren't very happy with Danish rule. So there's a lot of options we could do. We could first of all, we would incentivize them to declare independence from Greenland. Then we could sign we could do that by promising them $1 million each, really. There's 57,000 people there.
Can we move and transfer to Greenland real quick, David, Logan? Can we all get over there? $1 million apiece. Let's set up shop over there, David. At least temporarily in a hotel room with a PO box, right? So we get our check and we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll be illegal immigrants to Greenland so we can collect our $1 million checks and come home. I bet the population of Greenland would quadruple overnight if
exactly.
They knew that.
Are we going to give these people voting rights, David? I mean, if we are, how are they going to lean politically?
Well, I don't think that really matters given the size. Some people have talked about making Greenland the 51st state. I mean, with 57,000 people, it's not worthy of being a state. Our least populous state probably has 850,000 around that. Alaska or Wyoming, not sure which.
South Dakota.
Which is the least
South
populous.
Dakota is pretty sparse.
Yeah, it is for sure. No, but for Greenland, that's 55 to 57 million. I mean, heck, President Truman, Harry Truman, back in 1946, he offered 100 million in gold, which is the equivalent of 1.5 trillion today. So that's about 3.5 times.
He wanted Greenland?
He did.
Oh.
Yeah, this is not unprecedented.
For the same reason?
For the same reason, yep. I'm not sure if he was aware of the rare earth minerals, but he knew that Greenland is kind of in between the Russians' ICBM and SLBM launch routes. So it's important that way. We could.
So you're saying we could shoot their missiles down from right there?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if it's quite close enough for boost phase missile defense, but. Even if it's just sensor based, we could deploy our early warning sensors there to increase our warning time. If our satellites were to come down, our ground based radars could pick up the slack. So there's just a lot of reasons why it makes good strategic sense to acquire Greenland, and it could just be a free association agreement. We have free association agreements, I think, with some of the the islands of Micronesia in the South Pacific, where we basically take over their security. We'll let them have self-rule for the most part. A level of independence, not true independence, but certainly self-rule. And kind of enjoy the benefits of U.S. security while purporting to be independent countries. And so I think that's a good model. I think I proposed back in January of last year a North American Union that would be a kind of a confederation that would include Canada and Greenland. That would be ideal. But if it was just Greenland and the U.S., that would work well as well. So
okay, wait a minute.
kind
I
of
got to stop you right there.
agreement.
You're for a North American Union.
Well, I am for a North American Union, not with Mexico.
Okay.
It would be with, where the U.S. was the clear majority state. Canada, I think, has a little over 40 million people. I haven't looked recently, but I think that's about right. Greenland is not very populous. The U.S. has 343 million Americans and non-citizens. So 290 million Americans plus another 52 million illegals and legal residents that are non-citizens. I think we could dominate that union. So the answer is yes. Not all of North America, definitely not Central America or Mexico. But if it was just a confederation between the U.S. and Canada and Greenland, I would be strongly in support of that.
So you're not for the technate of America from the 1930s, Elon Musk's grandfather, that map?
Definitely not. No.
You've seen that, right?
No, I've never seen that map before.
Oh, have you not? We've done whole shows on it. It means that David's not watching everything we do here. Wow, he just got caught. I think you're busy being on other shows and researching so you can be on our show, so we'll give you a pass. But yeah, take a look at that map, David. That's technate. That is part of technocracy. That's the 1930s. That's technocracy. What was it? Technocracy Incorporated. And Elon Musk's grandfather was a part of that. Look at that map.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people are talking about right now. When President Trump talks about Canada being the 51st state, taking Greenland, this is what's got a lot of the people who are opposed to transhumanism and technocracy talking. This map right here.
Well, yeah, I think so, because it has Venezuela, Colombia, Panama.
Exactly.
So that would certainly explain
why he's threatening Colombia next, right?
Yeah. He's trying to fulfill Elon Musk's grandfather's mandate here. So, but yeah, Venezuela is, the latest reports are that the Secretary of Energy declared that the U.S. will permanently control all Venezuelan oil sales. I mean, heck, we don't even control their government yet, and we're still, claiming exclusive rights to selling their oil, as we continue to blockade them.
How does that work? Why does he say that? Okay. Why does he say that? We are now running Venezuela. We're going to sell their oil and take the money. Okay, people, I don't know. Maybe he has cut a deal behind the closed doors I don't know about over the phone lines. I don't know. So I'm not going to mock him or criticize him because maybe he obviously knows stuff I don't know. But if that's not true, that's why people are saying, oh, this is President Trump being, Trump. Trump's being Trump. He's just selling. He's distracting, like the fact that we're not going to have federal income tax anymore because our tariffs are going to be so big and everybody's going to get $2,000 checks coming up. And people are like, where is that talk? Where's the check? People are saying online, they're tired of all the promises. They're tired of all the talk, right? So is this more talk? And then others, and I'm not saying this is true, others are saying, oh, this is the sign of dementia, and his swollen ankles and his bruised hand. What I'm saying is the way he conducts himself at times causes frustration on the part of many of his base supporters and gives credible clips to be used by the left to confuse the center, the independents, and even Trump's base. So I think at times Trump is his own worst enemy with some of the stuff he says.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's demonstrating increasingly, narcissistic personality disorder. Where
so let me see what Tommy does.
We always knew he was full of.
Let me check my Trump watch real quick. Okay, we're good. We're back.
Yeah, I mean, he claims to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. He starts more wars than any president in modern U.S. history. He started with the 2-month war against Yemen. He had the 1-day war against Iran. But that wasn't just that was a pretty big deal, going against a country that likely has super EMP satellites over the U.S., nuclear IRBMs that could range Israel and all of Europe, U.S. military bases throughout Europe and the Middle East. He's got this war going on with Venezuela, and it's far from a done deal. If it was one and done, maybe I would be less critical, but he really hasn't accomplished anything. He got his You got Maduro, on false charges in a New York City prison. Big deal. How does that help America? It doesn't. It doesn't do anything to help America. And now he's, as you're probably going to cover as well. He's taken over a Russian oil tanker.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
World War III.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But here's your map with the Greenland. So there you go. So you're saying this is a very strategic, not only for nuclear defense, but also there are some key waterways there, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so the Greenland-Iceland gap, that was during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. That was a key area through which Soviet submarines would slip through. So we had a whole naval sensor array that was dedicated to tracking Soviet submarines that were trying to evade detection to get into the North Atlantic and, within a few hundred miles of Washington, D.C. and New York City. So there's also an increasing great power Arctic competition where, Russia, of course, is the premier Arctic power, but, Canada and the U.S. are in there as well because we have Alaska, and China is claiming to be an emerging Arctic power. There's, kind of a possibility where Russia could move ships, merchant ships, from the Russian Far East and the Western Pacific through shorter routes through the Arctic region instead of having to go around the Suez Canal or the Cape of Good Hope. So that's kind of behind why it's becoming a more strategic region. So those are all important reasons to do it. Trump's claim that it's Greenland surrounded by Chinese and Russian ships is only half true. It's got a lot of Russian ships, not a lot of Chinese ships.
Mm-hmm. All right, I don't know who Elizabeth Lane is. Elizabeth Lane, independent investigative journalist. All right, well, you retweeted her today, and she talks about how she really supports Donald Trump and thinks he's doing a great job, but she's got a problem. Apparently, she has a real problem with this recent oil tanker situation. I think we have a clip by CBS News. Let's listen to this and have David respond.
Announced this total blockade on sanctioned oil tankers coming or going from the coast of Venezuela. So that's when we saw these operations begin. The seizure of that initial oil tanker, sanctioned oil tanker, the Skipper, which was performed with U.S. military support and an elite team from the U.S. Coast Guard, which has jurisdiction to, make the actual interdiction of the sanctioned oil tanker. And so we've been closely tracking this particular vessel that we've been talking about, the Marinera, formerly known as the Bella, because we knew that, the Coast Guard had been following this vessel. We confirmed with sources earlier this week, CBS News confirmed that there were seizure plans in place, that this operation to target this particular ship would continue. And we also, CBS News confirmed via sources on Tuesday that Russia had sent a submarine and other Russian naval vessels to escort this tanker, which again sails under a Russian flag as part of this shadow fleet.
Okay, flies under a Russian flag. That's the point I was waiting for. So tell me how Putin's taking this right now, and why is this potentially dangerous for President Trump, the administration, and the country when his Coast Guard seizes this vessel?
Yeah, and this vessel is purportedly part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet. This is not part of the blockade of Venezuela. They're claiming that it was because it attempted to approach Venezuela, break the blockade, and ship Venezuelan oil to some location unknown to us. But it is clearly part of the Russian shadow fleet, and it was apprehended, was captured and seized off of the coast of Ireland, between Ireland and Iceland. So international waters, it's a Russian flagged ship, but most astoundingly, it was escorted by nuclear capable and nuclear missile armed Russian warships. Perhaps not the Russian frigates or corvettes that were escorting it. Most likely the frigates were nuclear armed. Are nuclear armed, as is the Russian cruise missile submarine that was escorting it. So can you imagine, if one of our oil tankers was escorted by U.S. Navy ships and a nuclear missile submarine, and Russia just sent some Coast Guard ships to swoop up and capture a U.S. oil tanker. I think we would react a little bit differently. So, Putin, of course, is very reserved in terms of trying to avoid outright conflict with the United States. So we ordered Russian ships not to interfere with the capture. Russia has decided to protest this diplomatically instead of have a military reaction, at least at this point, because they're still hoping for good relations with the U.S. under Trump. But this could serve to torpedo Trump's attempts to negotiate peace with Ukraine, because if we're going to start capturing Russian-flagged vessels that are escorted by their Russian Navy ships, I mean, these are essentially acts of piracy and potentially acts of war.
Mm. My friend Michael Reagan passed away on the 4th. We did a tribute to him here last night, and I don't know if you know, I've worked with him for 33 years. That's the first radio show I ever hosted nationwide, was his show. Any show I hosted. I was a guest on many, but I hosted his national syndicated program show in 95, my first start in professional radio, which led to me where I'm at today. And he did so much for me. And I remember having conversations with Michael, and he talked about this on the air, but Barry Seal, you remember the drug runner Barry Seal? Tom Cruise, I think, was the American-made movie about Barry Seal. But Michael talked about how George H. Bush, as vice president, he said was meeting with Barry Seal in the old executive office building during the whole Iran-Contra thing. And they were running drugs. Of course, we know about Mena Airport, Mena, Arkansas, and all that. And that all came to my mind when we were arresting Maduro. I'm like, we're arresting him for narco-terrorism. So I'm not sitting here defending Maduro, but if I were his attorney, I'd be bringing up all the Barry Seal information and all the drug running of the CIA and everything, which I think, if you're interested in watching a movie, American made by Tom Cruise, is history a lot of Americans don't know, but I was hearing about some of it from Michael Reagan personally, that he was talking about on the air as well. Watch this little trailer and a little bit from 60 Minutes, and then we'll get a response from David.
This is the United States Drug Enforcement Agency. We are ordering you to land. All right, boys, let's land. Is he?
My name's Barry Seal.
That's for the damage. For your sister, hey, little darling, and your back.
Some of this really happened.
You never saw me.
Top of your class in the Civil Air Patrol. A pilot like you shouldn't be flying buses.
Welcome to Miami. Welcome to Bakersfield.
Haven't you ever wanted something more, Barry?
You should be serving your country.
You're CIA.
Shh.
We need you to deliver stuff for us.
Oh, this is legal?
If you're doing it for the good guys.
Barry Seal. Genius!
You are an airline pilot, Barry. That's how you support this family.
This is gonna be good for us.
Is this all legal?
You trust me?
Oh!
We're expanding operations, Barry.
Roscoe dug this up in the backyard. There are bills blowing around everywhere.
I'll rake it up in the morning.
ATF, drop your weapons!
Guns, drugs, money laundering.
Did y'all know the caddies have more trunk space than any other car? I'll get each and every one of you a caddy for your troubles. See, I'm gonna walk out of here. There ain't a damn thing any one of you can do about it.
He's free to go.
Wait a minute. The boy should have taken the caddies.
There you go. All right. The movie has some language issues in it, but just FYI. But that's a movie that I saw several years ago, but I knew about Barry Seal because Michael Reagan and others were talking about it. People were writing books about it. I mean, that's one of the first things I would bring up if I was Maduro's defense attorney. What do you mean? Do you guys really want to look at what you guys have been doing in America?
Yeah, I mean, the CIA has been involved in the drug trafficking business, both in the Caribbean as well as I think even Afghanistan for many years, as a way to gin up additional covert funding for our regime change and other operations. But the crazy thing is, I don't know if you heard this, but there was a cabinet meeting in which Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, she stated that President Trump had saved hundreds of millions of lives, quote unquote, by sinking, whatever, 10 to 12 cocaine boats off of Venezuelan waters. In the run-up to this attack on Maduro and the Venezuelan capital of Caracas. And, I decided to research that, knowing that was entirely bogus. I found out that Venezuela is only responsible for 2,000 of the total U.S. drug deaths every year. We lose 100,000, Americans to drug overdoses. And of that, Venezuela and, not even Maduro, but Venezuela, Venezuelan drug sources are responsible for just 2% of that. So as Marjorie Taylor Greene, former Congresswoman that just resigned yesterday, stated, if this was really about drugs, President Trump would have gone into Mexico and bombed the cartels, taken cartel leaders, or even Colombia, which is responsible for nearly all of our cocaine deaths of 25,000 a year. Mexico and China are jointly responsible for the 75,000 that die from fentanyl. Venezuela is responsible for 0% of fentanyl deaths in the U.S. So this clearly has nothing to do with drugs. The DOJ filing that they're using to prosecute Maduro on false charges in the Southern District of New York, which ironically is the same district that had bogus charges against the president himself. They took out the whole claim that he's a drug cartel lord or crime boss. This whole cartel, the Solis cartel of the Suns, that never existed. And it was a complete fantasy. And so they removed almost all references to it in the updated filing.
And don't you think his defense attorney is going to use that? The government's case is so bogus that they go back and take out all the fairy tale information they put in there, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm not, again, sitting here defending Maduro. But what I'm saying is, if you don't do this the right way, your mistakes end up being part of the defense of the people you're going after.
Absolutely right. I mean, I had friends of mine, on social media claiming that Maduro was responsible for more U.S. deaths than died in World War II. In the affidavit or this prosecutorial filing, the word fentanyl isn't mentioned even once because they know there's no factual basis to claim anyone in Venezuela, let alone Maduro himself, is providing fentanyl to to Americans. So that really kind of grates me is when you have all these entirely bogus claims. The claim that Venezuela's been liberated, it's not communist anymore, the good guy, we're running the country. Hegseth and Rubio have a semi-military junta or whatever is running as viceroys of Venezuela for the U.S. empire. None of these claims are true. And so when you have a war where U.S. leaders are lying about virtually everything about the war, that makes me tend to oppose it.
Yeah, well, it comes back to what we've been talking about here for months, is the need for Oval Office addresses that are telling the American people the truth as much as we can without, upsetting national security secrets, but tell the American people the truth. Quit throwing them lines that they end up finding out that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, your credibility is at risk. And people can quickly now today search things like you're talking about and find out real fast. These are not true statements. Not to mention, again, why are we so worried about somebody else's country when our own country is doing the same thing or worse? And the whole point is with Trump, everybody wanted him to go in and clean house to deal with these corrupt government agencies, which, of course, we're seeing out of Minnesota, California. I mean, we have so much corruption. Can we not focus on America's corruption? Now, if the issue with Venezuela is Iran and China and Hezbollah setting up a base and making potential missile strikes on us, then fine, go deal with that and tell us the truth. But, don't make this about drugs and fentanyl when that's not the case. Quit confusing or lying to the American people. It starts becoming like we're being treated like we're either being treated like we're stupid or we're being treated with disrespect. At some point, it becomes very disrespectful, particularly to his base that has defended him to their family and friends over and over. And some of them have lost family and friends over the holidays over this man, and they've defended him. And then he treats them like this with what many are starting to feel is disrespect. I mean, that's fair enough, is it not?
It is, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. There is a case. There is a factual case which President Trump could have presented to the American people in an Oval Office address, in terms of trying to increase public support, which it was only, I think, by some polls, 23 to 30% supported military action against Venezuela. Now it's up to 37%, according to the latest poll. So, still a majority of the American people continue to oppose this military action, even though it was accomplished in a single day. I mean, it didn't accomplish really anything other than having Maduro behind bars, and his regime lieutenants are still firmly in power in Venezuela. It's still communist. It's still firmly allied with Russia and China. Any drug, shipments are still going on. We do have a blockade. We have a naval blockade, and that blockade has apparently been extended from the Caribbean all the way to Iceland. So there was just no reason for us to chase down the Russian tanker that was several thousand miles away from the blockade zone. Yeah, I think until we see some arrests, we haven't seen a single arrest by Pam Bondi of any of the Democrats who tried to steal the election. All the corrupt scandals, the Biden bribery scandal, where he and his family members had 51 million that they in business and bribes that they won from their corrupt business dealings. There's been nothing along those lines. And there's just so much deep state corruption, and how many deep state officials have even been fired? I mean, we don't really know, but it seems like not a lot.
Yeah, it comes back to they're running all this cocaine. Okay, well, prove it, number one. But number two, is your CIA done running dark ops of drugs so that they can fund off the book, projects and programs? Not to mention, what was it, like the Pentagon just failed its, 18th audit or something? Like number 18. You also made me aware today of this little clip from 60 Minutes. Watch this.
Is smuggled into the United States. Sound familiar? Not the way this ton of cocaine got here. According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard. While rumors of CIA involvement in drug trafficking have circulated for years, no one in the U.S. government has ever before publicly charged the CIA with this kind of wrongdoing. And it's not the kind of accusation anyone in government would make without thinking long and hard.
Let me understand what you're saying. A ton of cocaine was smuggled into the United States of America by the Venezuelan National Guard?
Well,
in cooperation with the CIA?
That's exactly what appears to have happened.
It's mind-boggling to me that
until last month, Judge Robert Bonner was the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. And Judge Bonner explained to us that only the head of the DEA is authorized to approve the transportation of any illegal narcotics like cocaine into this country, even if the CIA is bringing it in.
Let me put it this way, Mike. If this has not been approved by DEA or an appropriate law enforcement authority in the United States, then it's illegal. It's called drug trafficking. It's called drug smuggling.
So what you're saying, in effect, is the CIA broke the law. Simple as that.
I don't think there's any other way you can rationalize around it, assuming, as I think we can, that there was some knowledge on the part of CIA, at least some participation in approving or condoning this to be done.
Judge Bonner says he came to that conclusion after a 2-year secret investigation conducted by the DEA's Office of Professional Responsibility in cooperation with the CIA's own Inspector General. And what reason did the CIA have for promoting this drug smuggling?
Well, the only rationale that's ever been offered is that this would lead to some valuable drug intelligence about the Colombian cartels.
Over half of the Colombian drug cartel's cocaine crosses the border with Venezuela on its way to the United States and Europe. Back in the 1980s, the CIA was mandated by then-President Reagan to develop intelligence on the Colombian drug cartels. And so the CIA, with Venezuela's Guardia Nacional, or National Guard, set up an undercover operation, a drug smuggling operation in Venezuela that could handle the transshipment of the Colombian cartel's cocaine on its way to market. The plan was to infiltrate the cartel, and it worked. For the CIA National Guard undercover operation quickly accumulated this cocaine, over 1.5 tons, that was smuggled from Colombia into Venezuela inside these trucks, and then was stored here at the CIA-financed Counter-Narcotics Intelligence Center in Caracas. The center's commander and the CIA's man in Venezuela was National Guard General Ramon Guillén Davila.
I tried to work together with them. I was always aware that they were not telling me everything they were doing.
Annabelle Grimm was a DEA agent with 18 years' experience when she was made agent in charge in Caracas. And she says that the CIA station chief, James Campbell, and this man, Mark McFarland, the CIA officer in charge at the center, told her that to keep the undercover smuggling operation credible, they had to keep the cartel happy. And the way to do that was simple: deliver their dope, untouched by U.S. law enforcement, to the cartel's distributors, their dope dealers in the United States.
And that's a lengthy one. It's over about 14 minutes. You should find it and watch the whole thing. But that goes to the point we're talking about. This Maduro's defense team have plenty to work with if they're smart enough and knowledgeable enough to know where to look.
Yeah, the problem is, the CIA is behaving in this lawless manner for decades, essentially since its inception in 1947. Regime change operations. I think there were, at one point, I think I saw a list of like 83 regime change operations or attempts. Now, and we know that there's these, CIA-backed drug operations. How many Americans have been killed with CIA drugs? We just don't know. But the point is, this was tremendous hypocrisy on the part of President Trump. He could have gave a speech and said, "Hey, we have this communist dictator in Venezuela. He oppresses his own people. He was undemocratically elected. Fraudulently. He helped steal. We think he helped steal the 2020 election with the Democrats through the Smartomatic Venezuelan software." He's in league with Russia and China. We want to retake control of our hemisphere, but instead he focused on this bogus drug lord thing and said this is and he did that solely for the reason that he didn't want to get congressional authorization. He wanted to behave kind of in a dictatorial manner and unconstitutionally and say I don't want to brief anyone. I don't want to give speeches on this. I just want to do what I want. I want to do what I want when I want. And we'll use the drug enforcement operation as a cover to avert any need for congressional oversight. And I think that was a huge mistake because he could have done it in a manner that looked America first. And instead it looks a little bit corrupt and, very dishonest.
Well, Ron Paul, the dad, he put this out. The case against Nicolas Maduro hinged on Trump administration's designation of Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist drug organization with Maduro in charge. The administration has now admitted there is no such cartel. That's what we talked about a while ago. The operation looks like not much more than a big payoff to Trump's donors, including vulture capitalist Paul Singer, who stands to make billions from the operation. Well, why is he saying that? Last paragraph, David?
Well, Paul Singer, I think, may have been involved in the purchase of Venezuela's state-owned oil company, and once that's firmly under U.S. control, they can drop the blockade and sell it, with American control and with the profits going to Trump's big donors and maybe the U.S. taxpayers as well, but essentially stealing it from the Venezuelan people and. Not at all benefiting Venezuela as Trump is claiming he's euphemistically wanting to do. So his big donors and big oil are definitely on board with Trump's regime change attempts in Venezuela, which have thus far failed except for nabbing Maduro, I guess, the head of the snake.
Wasn't it Smedley Butler, whatever his name was, the general? All war is a racket, said most wars are fought for corporations. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily believe it when I heard it before, but it, under Trump, I think I'm seeing the truth of what he said.
Let's go finally to two things. Zelensky and Macron and Stormer signed a declaration of intent to deploy multinational forces from France, UK, and other Western countries in Ukraine at the end of the war. You say the UK and France seem excited about signing their own national death warrants by sending tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine. You write, I wonder how long they would last as the U.S. stayed out of a war between the UK and France and Russia. Comment on that, and where do you think this whole mess is going? What do you think Putin is likely to do when it comes to the U.S., when it comes to the UK and France and the rest of these characters?
Yeah, so Secretary of War Pete Hegseth back in February at the Munich Security Conference, he clearly stated that if Britain and France wanted to send, quote unquote, peacekeeping forces to Ukraine after a peace deal was signed, more power to them, but they would do so outside of Article 5, and the U.S. would not, under any circumstances, support them in the event they came under Russian fire, and thousands of British and French troops were killed. So. They have this death wish. They have, British, Starmer in Britain, Merz in Germany, Macron in France, principally those big three, and also to a lesser extent, Prime Minister Tusk in Poland, have this desire to have war with Russia. And it's just completely illogical. It's against their national interests. It threatens the very existence of their own countries. Putin clearly wants peace. He's, the day after he invaded, he started, offered a peace deal to Zelensky. The whole point of the Russian invasion of Ukraine was to get Zelensky to come back to the peace table. It worked until Russian troops were withdrawn from northern Ukraine prematurely after getting within 2 miles of the capital city limits in Kyiv on both sides of the Dnipro River. That was a huge mistake. That was Putin's biggest mistake, and it's cost Russia dearly in terms of lives. But then, of course, Biden and Boris Johnson torpedoed the Istanbul Agreement, under which Russia had promised to withdraw all of its troops from pre-war Ukraine, and of course, 900,000 Ukrainians would still be alive today if Biden had allowed that to go through. But I think we're farther away from peace than ever before since Trump became president, because the 20-point peace plan was essentially dictated by Zelensky and Rubio. And Rubio, of course, is pulling Trump's strings on foreign policy. That's why you didn't see J.D. Vance in the room. You didn't see Tulsi Gabbard. The only America First conservative in the room was Pete Hegseth. And I think Pete Hegseth is, he was strongly in favor of this particular move, but he's been much more skeptical about the war in Ukraine and continuing that war that Joe Biden started, as Trump admitted, and also, major military action against Iran.
Well, we're already in it. I mean, 2026, day 7, and look at all this happening. Going to be a busy news year. Take a look at this, folks. David Pine. You can follow him on X at America First Con, at America First Con. Follow him on X, and also D Pine, D-P-Y-N-E, dpine.substack.com. Busy news night. As always, David, thank you for your analysis.
Thanks, Brad. Always a pleasure. Keep up the good work.
You too, my friend. David Pine, he'll be checking back in. dpine.substack.com. Again, if you appreciate what we're doing, as we work so many hours a day to bring you the news, and you can't imagine how many hours we're working off the air to be able to bring you a program like this. Lots of work, lots of research. I do want to bring up one point, though. If you don't get an email back from me or someone on the staff, please don't be offended. Someone emailed today, very disappointed, very offended that we didn't answer their email. Said, look, I'm a donor, and I'm going to stop supporting you. I had not even seen the email. It's impossible for me to see 1,000+ emails a day that come in. It is overwhelming. Earlier today, my wife said, we have someone asking this question and that question, and she can't keep up, folks. We are so busy trying to help people get into their vaults, answer technical questions, we have people that are calling to make contributions. She's talking to donors, taking down their contributions, answering the phone calls for that. We just don't have enough staff to answer every question that comes in. I wish we did, but we don't. And some of them are simply asking questions like, what do you think about what Tucker Carlson said about this? What do you think about this church denomination? We just don't have the staff for that. I wish we did, but we don't. And please don't be offended if we can't answer every question that comes in. And please don't be offended if I don't see every email that comes in. If we were a multi-million-dollar income generating organization, if our foundation was bringing in millions of dollars a year, if our organizations that support us were paying us millions of dollars a year, then yeah, we could afford to hire staff that do nothing but customer support and answer questions. That's not what's happening, folks. And we have so many things that happened to us in the last year or so with the IRS taking $49,000 from us because we simply paid our payroll taxes by check versus online, to having our system shut down by a vendor with no warning. And we had to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars rebuilding that, not to mention all the end of the year donations we missed because we weren't able to run the kind of programming we should. So we're doing good. So please don't send us angry emails and how disappointed you are and how mad you are and you're never supporting us again because we don't answer an email. Okay, that's not what we do here. We don't sit here and say, hey, email us and we'll answer all your questions. That's not what we're running here. We're not running an Ask Me Question website. We're running a broadcast network. And the hours on television that we do require hours off the air to research and to prepare. So we can sit and Logan can answer your email questions, those of you that are upset, and I can do that. And then we'll be off the air. We'll be doing nothing but sitting here answering what church denominations do we like? What do we think about what Tucker Carlson said about London? And all these other emails we get. Or we can say, I can't be distracted from that. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to study and then to bring you the news and information. So just you have to understand, folks, the number of emails we get encouraging us and supporting us and thanking us, we appreciate. But you ought to see the amount of emails we get of people just being rude to us, treating us like dogs, to be honest. You ought to hear some of the phone calls and the way people talk to us until they realize who they're talking to. And then all of a sudden they change and become nice. That's happened so many times. People chewing my wife out until they realize who they're talking to. And then they get nice. Well, whether it's my wife or anyone else, all we push out for free. And you ought to see how we get treated, folks. There's a reason nobody wants to do customer support for a percentage of these people. The vast majority are just as nice as can be. And my wife has a positive experience with so many of them. So nice. But you ought to pick up on the 1 or 2% that can bring us such pain and distraction. So if you're in that 1 or 2%, knock it off. To the other 98% of you, thank you for being class acts. Thank you for not demanding we answer every email or you're never supporting us again. Particularly when the questions are like, well, what do I think about Tucker Carlson, what he said about London? I don't know what Tucker said about London. I don't care what Tucker said. I try to avoid Tucker. He's nuts, in my opinion. But to all of you, the 98% plus of you that are class acts, thank you. To the other 1 or 2%, can you please knock it off? And if you don't get an email response from us, don't take it personal. I didn't even see it. Logan didn't see the email. And this is not one off. This is not one guy. This is becoming a pattern. People get angry because we don't answer them. That's not what we're here to do, is answer every email. As I said, we're not your personal librarian. We're not your personal researcher. So many of these questions people could have answered if they just use a search engine. We're here to study and then present you the news. That's what we do. That's what we're about. So thank you to all you that are supporting us so we can do our job. But let's remember what it is our job is. It's not to be people's personal Ask Brannon Howse / Alexa. You know, we're not AOL search engines that you can just email and we'll do your research and dump it back in your lap. Now, we do have some very powerful programs coming soon, and we're not going to release them until they're ready. And they should have been ready, but we got distracted because we had our services turned off by a major company. But pretty soon, you're going to be able to put a lot of your questions into our system, and it's going to answer them from my perspective, from my 36 years, so that you can get a lot of your questions. But if you're wanting to know what I think about Tucker and his comments about London, I don't know what Tucker said. I don't care. And if you get angry because I didn't answer that email, then we're probably not the network for you, and you probably should pull your support and walk away. And then we won't have to deal with the frustration. So there you go. It's a two-way street. See how that works? So for the rest of you, 98% that are class acts, thank you. To the 2%, as I said, let's not do this in 2026. We don't have the energy for it. One of our New Year's resolutions here at Worldview for 2026 was to decrease drama, to decrease the drama. So to that 1 or 2% creating the problem, stop the drama. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. All right, joining me with an update on Iran, because things are moving fast there, is Annie Cyrus, liveuptofreedom.substack.com. By the way, Annie, my little diatribe there, I've bit my tongue on that one now for several years, and maybe I should have continued doing so. I don't know. What did you think of that?
I think you are a much better person than I am, because I did not. I don't bite my tongue. There has been times where I have actually refunded the donation, because I just couldn't take that I have donated to you, therefore I own you now attitude. I was like, how about this? Here's your donation back. We don't have to know each other anymore. I've done that.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I got it off my chest, and hopefully we can, everybody can have a great, happy 2026. It's not that we're not happy to try to answer emails. The issue is we just can't answer all of them. That's the main thing, right? It's just, there would be no Brannon Howse Live tonight. I'm sorry, I spent the whole day answering emails. I have no content for you.
Yes, and again, if it's, I personally, Brannon, if I get an email or a message that's about the topic of the show that day, wonderful. But as you said, so I was like, have you heard of that person saying something about somebody else? I'm like, no, because I was busy preparing for my show and writing my Substack and translating videos from Iran. I'm sorry if I missed your important point of the day.
Yep. Well, let's go to Iran or Iran. The prince has been out talking quite a bit. I want to play a couple videos, but first, now you have been talking about MEK, right? And you've been warning the Republicans are too wrapped up in MEK. That's that Marxist Islamic group. And a lot of these Republican and GOPers are on their bandwagon, and then they're wanting to have the American government decide who's the next leader of Iran. Whereas the prince has come out today, as I put in the Worldview report, and I think I was quoting you. I was quoting you in your liveuptofreedom.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com column today in my Worldview report. The prince has said, we don't want America deciding the next leader. This will be decided by the Iranians on the street. But you now have a bone to pick with, who is it? A guy we've interviewed here several times, and I like him, but you have a bone to pick with Mayor Rudy Giuliani, right?
Yes, and actually on my program and on your program, a few times I have named him as one of the big names that is a supporter of MEK. I have tried to reach out through social media and inform him, but today we're past that point because Rudy Giuliani decided to put a tweet out absolutely bashing Crown Prince Pahlavi and telling what Iranian people do or do not need today. I believe, paraphrasing, he said something like, the last thing Iranian people need is the monarch. There we go. You have beautiful. Do you mind? Like, it's okay. First of all, the story he puts up about Mossadegh is the same narrative we've been hearing from opposition. We've been hearing from CIA. We've been hearing about sugar-coated versions. And we all know Giuliani for many years has been a supporter of MEK. So it's pretty clear. I believe what I said privately was, I think they boosted his pay, which I'm pretty sure they have, because Rudy Giuliani does get paid to show up at events for MEK and pose for pictures. And there are many pictures of Rudy Giuliani and Maryam Rajavi, which is the leader of MEK. Maryam Rajavi was arrested, facing 17 or 18 charges in Paris, in France, in 2003. That's what actually kind of sort of got them out of France. There was a ban on travel for Maryam Rajavi in France, in America. MEK was on terrorist list of United States of America until as early as 2018. And the fact that, it's freedom. Rudy Giuliani wants to take money from MEK and support them, good for him. But for him to use his giant platform to lie about the chosen candidate by Iranian people is crossing the line.
Well, what about let me make the same, let me go back to that. He said the crooked and brutal monarchy. Talk about the Shah. The people don't want to go back to the homicidal Pahlavi secret police. The Savak taking over the torture from the Iranian Guard. Now, I've watched some documentaries on the Shah. What do you make of those who say he had secret police and were torturing people and all this thing?
I will say this. Yes, he had secret police. So does any other country and any other government. So that part, I don't think it's against the law.
I think we have secret police here in the U.S.
Of course we do. Of course we do. Now, we want to talk about torture. Of course. We have captured terrorists and we have allegedly tortured them to get information to stop the next attack, haven't we? That's what Mossad does. That's what MI6 does. That's what Sabak did. Khamenei, the man that is killing innocent, empty-handed people today, was one of the poor political prisoners of Sabak. Khomeini, who hijacked the country, was one of the poor political opposition to the Shah that was arrested by Sabak.
So in other words...
Well, let me tell you this. Why was Khamenei alive in exile to come back and hijack the country? Because Shah didn't kill his opposition. How's that for proof?
There you go. And maybe he should have, right?
I have personally said, I wish he was the dictator people tend to portray him as, because then we all would have a much better Iran today.
How many people has the Shah killed? I'm sorry, not the Shah. I'm not the Shah. How many people has the Khomeini regime and the Ayatollah before him killed? How many? Since 79, how many of these supreme leaders, how many have they killed?
I'm going to have to go with a guesstimate, conservative guesstimate, close to 30 to 32,000. Only country. Iranians.
Iran, 32,000 in country.
Yes.
Okay. How about worldwide with their terrorist regime? Their Hezbollah, their terror cells.
It's over 160,000.
Over 150,000. And then what if you talk about U.S. troops and their involvement in wars in other countries and our troops?
A lot. I mean.
So you're kind of frustrated right now.
I am not frustrated. To be very blunt, I'm proud of myself for walking away from Republican Party 9 years ago as spotting the problem. 2, I am extremely disappointed.
So you're a Democrat now?
No, I am independent.
I'm just messing with you.
I know. But I am disappointed.
Hey, Logan, can you imagine that? Annie Cyrus is independent.
Right? It doesn't
Logan's
fit my
laughing. That
personality.
fits your personality. Of course she's independent. That's Annie Cyrus.
But my biggest problem today, and I want to give a big shout out again. Earlier on my show, I gave a shout out to Laura Loomer for putting out a tweet attaching Prince Pahlavi's speech and encouraging President Trump to sit down with Prince Pahlavi. Now, again, I want to give her another shout out where she used her big platform to introduce people to who MEK is and why people like Rudy Giuliani, Mike Pence, I forgot the other name. She literally tagged these names and told them that you should not be backing MEK. So 2 shout outs in one day to Laura Loomer. I love the fact that she is actually very well versed on all of these issues. But that's the thing. We can't have these big names with credibility. I believe what is he called? America's mayor. It is very disappointing for America's mayor to make such accusations knowing they're not true, because I know Rudy Giuliani is good with history. He reads a lot. To put information that he very well knows is not accurate and truth, to continue receiving, funding, it's extremely disappointing.
Here's her tweet. The most disturbing and under talked about stories right now in the United States is the fact that the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as MEK, is passing out money to GOP operatives and lobbyists to influence the outcome of the Iranian people-led regime change in Iran. And she puts it out and warns people to knock it off. So good for her.
Yes. Again, very, very, very few voices are even aware of MEK, let alone coming out and calling out on Republicans who are pushing for MEK. It's, again, with his age, with his life, with his background, Rudy Giuliani, I always thought Rudy Giuliani will respect the blood of young Iranians that have been shed for last decade.
And now this MEK has been rebranded, she says, as the National Council of Resistance of Iran.
They rebranded themselves after they were removed from the terrorist list to try to change minds, but we refuse to call them by their new name. They are the same MEK they were, and that's the thing. MEK was also victims of Sabak. And then when the Khomeini regime took over, in one day, in one flat day, Khomeini ordered execution of 800 MEK members in Iran. So I want to be very clear. This is not about people of Iran. Why do I say this? Proof. During Iran-Iraq war, MEK exiled, that's what they call them. They went to Iraq. And when the war broke, the leaders, Mariam and Masoud Rajavi, the wife and husband, they shook hands with Saddam Hussein. They gave Saddam Hussein every single underground way to come into Iran. What kind of I care for people of Iran leaders would do that? Did they think, what, Saddam Hussein is going to say, I'm not going to kill Iranian civilians and I'm just going to topple the regime? That one operation by Saddam that was coordinated and organized by MEK members who were from Iran with knowledge of ins and outs of that province resulted in death of over 6,000 Iranian civilians in that one Iraqi operation. This is why Iranian will never accept MEK, no matter how much lipstick you put on the pig. They will notice it's the same pig that killed Iranian people for their own personal revenge against the regime.
Let's go to a couple of videos you've sent. Here we go. Here's the first one. Excuse me. Okay, toppling a statue, huh?
That is Qasem Soleimani's statue in Iran. Tell me we are calling it revolution out of false hope. Does this scene look like a revolution or not?
Yeah.
This is Qasem Soleimani, the man that basically when President Trump ordered his
That's
kill
the
shot,
general that Trump had struck,
Yes.
and then all they found was his finger with his ring on it.
with his ring, that's how I identified. This is the third Qasem Soleimani statue that has been toppled in Iran in last 24 hours.
Okay, let's go to the next one. And then we'll talk about what may be coming in the next few days. Here we go. Here's the next one.
پایین آوردن پرچم مشهد تبرسی 17 دیما جاوید شاه
Tearing that flag up, aren't they?
They are taking flags down.
پایین
Yes.
آوردن پرچم
All right, we'll just keep showing that a little bit more with the audio down. But
I was just about to say most of them can be played without. I picked these specifically for the fact of you just watch the video and you know what stage people are at. Especially your audience, my audience. They've been following this through my reporting and your reporting for like, what, 8 years now?
mm-hmm.
There is a difference. When I sit here and say it's different, the actions and the result, and we're only on day 12, and one city has been completely taken over by people. There's another video, it just starts with fire, and we don't have to play that one all the way, but that is the second central police department in Khorasan that what people took over and then they burned it down. There you go. This is the second central or headquarter, I guess is that what we call it? Police department in Khorasan. We talked about Khorasan 2 nights ago on your show. The area where I said the only religious area that might try to defend Islam. That is the province. Forget about it. They're burning down police departments. They're burning down Islamic seminaries. They're burning down flags, even inside the most religious cities in Iran.
Isn't that funny? Not funny, but isn't it ironic? They're burning those things down while we're building them left and right here in the United States and helping them to launder money and make billions of dollars. These very groups that they're opposing and getting rid of their flags and their mosques and their police. We're allowing them to have their secret police, their Sharia police in America, their courts, their mosques, and then steal billions of dollars from us.
And we also, again, I'll take it back to the previous conversation. We also have not Democrats, not socialist progressives. We have conservative Republicans backing up Islamic Marxist groups. That is where the disappointment comes from. We're watching Iranian people try to get rid of Sharia altogether, while we also try to endorse another Islamic Marxist now. The Islamic regime wasn't enough. Let's go ahead and put Islamic Marxist group in Iran in charge. Just the thought of being friendly to them makes me question certain people's judgment. And again, I'm not the one saying. There are videos that are about MEK that proves it. I actually sent you one that's like 3 minutes long in English with B-rolls and all of that. Just look up MEK. You'll see in their own bio under their Wikipedia, it says Marxist Islamist group that has the militia department and then the civilian department. You just look at any picture of MEK groups or videos, me and you, we spot the Marxist. Why? They're wearing the hijab, yes. But all of them also have matching uniform. Absolute communists.
What video was that you sent of that? Which one was it?
It's the first email I sent. It has 3 links. One of them is a YouTube link.
Yeah.
That one.
That one?
It's like 3 minutes, some seconds.
And what is it? Tell me.
This is Ashraf 3, a self-contained complex where nearly 3,000 exiled Iranians live and work in the hills of Albania. It's home to the Mujahideen Khalq organization, or MEK, which is dedicated to toppling the regime in Tehran. The complex includes this imposing museum documenting political repression in Iran. The group was once designated as a terrorist organization by the United States and the European Union. But both Washington and Brussels delisted it years ago, and MEK leaders say they're committed to peaceful struggle.
هنری داریم، موسیقی، انواع اقسام هنرمندان تو اشرف 3 هستن. از شعرا، نویسندگان، خواننده، نوازنده، انواع هنرهامون هم در خدمت مقاومت مردم ایران.
The group now has powerful friends in Washington, including President Donald Trump's personal lawyer.
I should tell you at the beginning, I'm only answering questions about Iran, the MEK, their fight for freedom.
Rudy Giuliani has reportedly been paid by the group. Last year, he visited Ashraf 3 in a personal capacity and told an RFERL reporter there that the group was optimistic and determined. Others in Washington are concerned. Former US State Department counterterrorism coordinator Daniel Benjamin said MEK members were Islamo-Marxists with American blood on their hands. Michael Rubin, a former Pentagon advisor on Iran and Iraq, said the group resembles a cult. In Ashraf 3, there are no children. Men and women sleep in separate quarters and are expected to devote all their efforts to the cause. Much of the fight takes place online.
درد مردم و اخبار ایران از سانسور رد کنیم و به گوش جهان برسونیم. وارد خود جامعه میشیم از طریق سوشال مدیا با تک تک افراد تلاش میکنیم دردشون رو بشنویم. مثلا همین امروز یکی از زندان گوهردشت یک پیام صوتی فرستاده بود.
Media reports have cited defectors who say this is a troll farm, using fake accounts to spread propaganda and disinformation. The Iranian government makes similar accusations, while the MEK says that such claims are a smear campaign. The MEK's message that Iran commits widespread human rights abuses has been well documented by non-governmental groups, media and Western diplomats. But the MEK itself remains highly controversial, embraced by some, regarded by others with profound suspicion.
Wow, that's. I'm glad you sent that. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's the thing. I'm like, a lot of people think I just have this personal bias, so I make things up. I'm like, here it is. I had nothing to do with production of this. Every evidence is coming from some official from America, and there you have it.
Yep, there you have it.
But as of this afternoon, Rudy Giuliani decided to still continue supporting MEK by using their own method. That's what's disturbing. The man who supposedly stood for the truth and transparency for Americans is using propaganda for Iranians. Really? This is pretty much where you can find, again, evidence of they claim to be peaceful, but they have basically infiltrated Washington through Republican and GOP, gaining credibility through them.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad that we have you. I hope this network of listeners are happy that we're here. We're not here to be political hacks. We're not bought and paid for. We're listener supported. We're just committed to the truth. We're independent broadcasters, right, Annie?
Absolutely. I know you already have proven your side, but I am still trying to show people, even when my bloodline is involved, I will stick to the truth. And that's what matters. And that's why I have to sometimes be not so nice to people's favorite.
We don't like the word nice, remember?
I know. Well,
kind.
Well, no, I was using it in that phrase. Actually.
Oh, okay,
nice.
yeah. The word nice
I can't look the other way and be ignorant, like, oh, it's Giuliani. I can't go after him because too many people like him. No, I'll when it's called for, I have to report it. And I'm willing to face the backlash and the screams and the blocking. I'm willing to do it. This is a future of my people, that aside, nation that has fought 47 years with their lives. 31 Iranians have been killed in last 11 days, 5 of them kids under the age of 17.
Yep.
We need to stand by the truth.
Indeed. By the way, the word nice is derived from the word ignorant, which is why we don't like the word nice. Just go look that up, folks. You'll find that very interesting. Some of you already know that. All right. Is there anything that you want to tell us that might be coming that we should be paying attention to?
Yes. First, let me start by saying I will ask on all your audience to say a prayer tonight before they go to bed. We need to deeply pray for President Trump. We need to pray that Lord will put it in his heart to make the right decision for the right reasons comes next 4 or 5 days. The outcome of what's happening in Iran absolutely depends on President Trump's decision within the next 4 or 5 days. And if, Lord willing, he makes the right decision, I might be joining Brannon Howse over the weekend or latest by Monday with a huge breaking news. If President Trump makes the right call.
Okay. All right. So keep checking here. We'll put out push alerts. If you don't get our push alert, you go to your app. We've been running spots on how to... Logan, can we actually run that spot real quick? The one about how to turn on push notifications? Let me run that real quick. Because you say, how will I know if you're going live over the weekend with breaking news or something? Then you get our app, and then you set the push notification. Let me run that spot real quick. Annie, stay with me. Let me run that spot real quick. Guys, pay attention. Maybe pull out your phone real quick. Maybe pull out your phone or your iPad and film this short spot that we're about to run. That way you'll know how to get the app and turn on the push notifications so you'll be notified if we go live with breaking news. So why don't you get your phone or your iPad and record this real quick, because you might have played a couple times to follow the instructions on how to get the app and turn on notifications. Watch this. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Coming now is Alex Newman, libertysentinel.org, libertysentinel.org. Alex, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
I mean, great to be with you, Brandon.
All right. I want to talk to you about many issues here. The MAGA base is really frustrated. They're hearing that this is the greatest economy ever, inflation's under control, yet they know that's not the case when they go to the grocery store. They're being told tariffs are going to bring in so much money, we're going to be able to do away with the federal income tax. That's not being talked about anymore that I've heard lately. And yet we're now being told $2,000 checks are going to be going out. We are dealing with Maduro. They had to rewrite the charges against him, take things out that weren't even accurate. Yet we have a history with our own government of drug running. We dealt with that in our segment tonight with David Pine. The whole movie was made about it, called American Made, with Tom Cruise, and about Barry Seal running drugs. Our own CIA, 60 Minutes, did a piece on running cocaine. I mean, we're so busy policing everybody else and dealing with their corruption, we're not dealing with any of ours. We have governors like Newsom, apparently, in his state. We have Minnesota with Walz. We have billions and billions, probably now trillions lost in fraud. The Pentagon can't pass, the last 18 audits, yet you try that with the IRS. The American people are fed up with our corrupt government. Nothing is being improved. No one's indicted. No one's being arrested, but we're arresting Maduro. Not that I'm defending him or opposed to it if it means stopping Iran from continuing to set up missiles in Venezuela and other things. But at some point, we're running out of time. And we don't even have the voter ID things dealt with to make sure that we can have a free and fair election coming up in the midterms. I know that's a lot, but I'm going off of what I'm seeing on social media, the emails we're getting and seeing, but a lot of it comes from the frustration I'm seeing on social media with the MAGA base. Can you speak to any of this?
Well, thank you again, Brannon. And there's no doubt that a lot of Trump's base is getting frustrated with the situation. And I think in some ways they're right to be frustrated. I mean, we're out arresting foreign criminals like Maduro, and I think I've got a very nuanced view on what happened there. But meanwhile, the real criminals who we've been promised are going to be facing justice and accountability are still running around free. They're still enjoying their mansions and their giant retirements after all the crimes they perpetrated against the American people, after the betrayal of our country and our Constitution, after the efforts to overthrow our system of government. And so I understand the frustration, and the economy is the same issue. Now, there are good things happening, and I think what happened in Venezuela, while I think there are very valid constitutional questions, I think what is happening in Latin America is very important. It's needed to be addressed for a long time. You and I have talked about it before, Brandon. I grew up in Latin America, of course. I spent almost all my childhood in Latin America, and I've been following for over 15 years in the New American Magazine and other publications the communist takeover of that region, backed by the Kremlin, backed by the CCP. Of course, Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah are all involved. And, of course, the deep state in the United States has been actively involved in this. I mean, if you look at the Council on Foreign Relations, what I call deep state headquarters, their main point person for Latin America for years, Julia Swig, was a Castro apologist, somebody who was openly helping the leftist, communist, jihadist axis take over the entire hemisphere. You have Barack Obama and Joe Biden and George Soros handing whole countries over to these communist terrorists on a silver platter, Colombia being just one of many examples. And so, this is something that has needed to be dealt with for a long time. Whether it was dealt with in the best way, I'm not qualified to say. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. But, the left is trying to do everything possible to bring down the United States, the left in alliance with the Islamists and others. And they're finding great success. I don't envy Donald Trump's position. He basically has taken over a country that was already on the verge of destruction. I've heard the analogy used, it's like trying to turn the Titanic around on a dime after you've already hit the iceberg. I mean, that's essentially the situation that I think he finds himself in right now. And I don't envy that situation. But I do get a very real sense that Trump is being set up for a catastrophe. I think the globalist evildoers recognize that he is not on board with a lot of their agenda in terms of selling out the American people, in terms of building a new world order, in terms of destroying our economy. And I think they're going to try to crash everything down on his head and blame it on him. And it will not be justified, in my opinion. He's not the reason that these things happened, but he will be blamed for them. So he's got a very difficult tightrope to walk here. He's got to find a way to explain and articulate this to the American people. He's got to take aim at the key players and the key institutions. He's done something, at least, on the education front in terms of at least exposing the indoctrination of our children and trying to take some basic steps to at least rein it in a little bit. But he's also going to have to address the money situation, right? The reason the inflation is out of control, the reason our economy is collapsing, the reason Americans are struggling to make ends meet is because we have a fraudulent monetary system. It's basically a criminal syndicate masquerading as a federal agency, a banking cartel that creates money out of nothing, loans it out into the economy, and then charges us interest that they never created. It's the ultimate form of usury. And of course, they've used this to basically loot the American people, to destroy the American middle class. And Trump's base, I think, they're right to be frustrated, but they need to understand that this is a problem that was not caused by Donald Trump. Trump understands a lot of this, and so I don't understand why he hasn't come out and tried to explain to the American people clearly the problems with this system. But he's got a lot of work ahead of him. So,
wow, great analysis. You talk about the desire to create chaos in the country. Let's go to Minneapolis. You probably have seen the footage. We can bring it back up if you want, Logan. The ICE agent having to shoot what I think now is a 37-year-old lady. Apparently he thought he had to shoot her. Apparently he felt his life was at risk. It looks like from one angle, the car did hit him, and he had to shoot this lady. And now we're seeing protests in the street. The governor of Minnesota has apparently called for people to get into the streets, not only in Minneapolis, but in Chicago and other cities. There's the footage of the shooting. And we have another angle, I think, from KSTP that, Logan can play. That looks like it shows, the ICE agent being hit. But there is the shot, and this woman is now dead. I think he's got another angle. And let's see. Is this the... There's the other angle. All right. All right. Now we've got the governor of Minnesota. Listen to him. Listen to this, Alex. Tim Walz, who's under investigation, apparently.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government. I think in this case that the National Guard is their main mission. They have a dual mission.
We've never been at war with the federal government. So he just declared basically there's a civil war. He just said it. Alex?
Yep. And, Brannon, you and I have been talking about this for years. We have been warning for years that there are powerful forces that want to see a civil war in this country. And it's interesting that this is happening now. Back to Venezuela, to go back now 50 years, I want people to remember the Weather Underground.
Yes.
The Weather Underground, terrorist organization in the United States, was working very closely with Cuban intelligence, with the DGI, the Director General of Intelligence for the mass murdering Cuban dictatorship. And they were bombing targets in America. They bombed the Pentagon. They bombed the Capitol. They bombed the State Department. They murdered police officers, and then they bombed the funerals of those police officers so they could murder more people. They robbed money trucks to facilitate their terrorism. And we know, thanks to the efforts of FBI operative Larry Grathwohl, what their plan was. They wanted to kick off a revolution in the United States that would cause chaos. They were planning to invite hostile foreign governments into the United States to occupy different parts of the country. The Soviets would get a part, the Vietnamese would get a part, the North Koreans would get a part, the Cubans would get a part, et cetera. And they were going to build, basically, Larry Grathwohl said, and he said he heard them talking about this, a network of concentration camps to re-educate Americans. And then they were planning to exterminate the 25 million Americans who could not be re-educated. And people think about that and they think it's ancient history. They don't realize that the founder of that terrorist movement, Bill Ayers, who was let off on a technicality, did not disappear. And he did not get hung or thrown in jail for life as he should have been. Instead, he became a professor of education. And then he launched the political career of a guy that nobody had ever heard of, a community organizer named Barack Obama. And then Barack Obama came to power and started building up these communist regimes across Latin America that have been working to destroy us all along. So it all comes full circle. And I think what we're witnessing right now in Minnesota and across the country, not just with the protests against ICE, but all of it, is an effort to kick off a civil war in this country. And I think American conservatives have to be very careful not to fall for the trap.
100%.
I hear more and more conservatives talking about how, well, we have all the guns and all the rest of it. No, that's not how this works. We're being led into a trap, and we have to do everything we can to make sure our country does not fall into a full-blown civil war.
100% agree with that. Here's some video footage. Apparently, the left is chasing away.
Okay, it looks like they are throwing snowballs as the officers are leaving. So again, I believe it was a state patrol, and we did see some MPD officers who were leaving that scene. Hennepin County telling us that their sheriff's deputies have not been on that scene, but it looks like as officers are leaving the scene, just having some protesters or bystanders, agitators throwing some snowballs at them as they leave. We saw this earlier.
We did.
Well.
Yep, we saw this exact thing earlier, and this was targeted toward ICE agents at that particular time. But now, as you mentioned, this is MPD, BCA was on scene, the Sheriff's Department as well. And as this street is opening up here, you can see a lot of these protesters, these people in the community responding to this. And now we're having an aerial view here of what we have been seeing, what we did see earlier, and now it's once again, you can see them throwing some of those snowballs at those vehicles.
You know, this kind of starts to look like 2020. Remember when they were chasing the police out of parts of Minneapolis and burned down their precinct? I hope we're not going to see that tonight, although I do have footage that's coming in. This is another one out of the Twin Cities where I think they stormed the downtown Minneapolis federal courthouse. Here we go. And so it looks like they were able to lock it and get them out and stop that. Stop ICE now is the chant there. But they are apparently going out into the streets of the Twin Cities tonight. I'll bring up more of that footage here as I get a response from Alex. But you know, Minnesota, you and I lived there for several years. You've been there a lot. You know, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have really thought that would be the launch of such massive civil unrest in the country, being Minneapolis. You know, George Floyd, and now this. We kind of expected this somewhere else, but the loons took over, pardon the pun, because that's their state bird, the Minnesota loon. But the loons took over the state, and they've made it basically a place where this is invited and encouraged. I mean, I don't think I can play some of the clips today from the mayor of Minneapolis. Can I, Logan? Wasn't he cursing too much? I don't think I can play some of those clips. Respond to that. Maybe you can find one that's cleaned up, Logan. But respond to that, Alex.
Well, let's not forget, too, again, it all comes full circle. Right? The Black Lives Matter movement obviously was instrumental in the chaos that enveloped Minneapolis. Well, one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, Opal Tometi, was in Caracas posing with the murderous dictator, Nicolas Maduro, and posting a picture on Twitter saying, oh, it's so nice to be in a country with intelligent political discourse. So we see, again, the same thing, domestic subversives, domestic terrorist movements working with hostile foreign regimes against the interests of our country. The other major group that was involved in stirring up the big unrest that we saw some years ago in Minneapolis, the Sunshine Movement, this is completely funded by the Rockefeller dynasty and a bunch of other subversive mega foundations. Why would the Rockefeller syndicate be financing left-wing extremists to kick off a revolution in cities like Minneapolis? Well, for the same reason that David Rockefeller was so friendly with Fidel Castro. It all comes full circle. I mentioned the Council on Foreign Relations and their Latin America chief, Julia Swig, helping the communists throughout Latin America. They are using a pincer movement, right, where you've got the pressure from below with the communist radicals in the street, the Black Lives Matter, the subversives burning down cities and attacking cops and shooting at ICE agents and so on. And then you've got the pressure from above, which is the political class, the governor there, the mayor there, et cetera. And the population, you know, confused and desperate, doesn't know what to do, and they get trapped in this vice grip. It's very, very dangerous.
Indeed it is. And, of course, we have to remember Gus Hall, the communist presidential candidate, was from Minnesota.
That's right. Yep.
So I talked with David Pine earlier. He thinks the Democrats are going to win big time in the midterms based on a lot of things we've been talking about tonight. And that President Trump has really gotten off track, off message, and that they're going to impeach him again for the third time. And he may actually be removed from office this time. Some Republicans may join in on that vote and actually remove him from office. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a very real possibility if Trump doesn't succeed in getting this stuff under control right now. Now, not a lot of people are talking about this, but I believe one of the big reasons that Trump decided to risk so much on this capture of Maduro is that he knows that Maduro and his criminal syndicate masquerading as a government were deeply involved with, of course, the communist Cubans in the creation of tools to steal elections around from the world. I've talked to multiple sources who have confirmed that the Venezuelan regime was involved in election fraud operations, including here in the United States, and that Trump not only knows about it, but is concerned about it. So hopefully exposing some of the election fraud will help in the lead up to the midterms. But I share those concerns, and I think there's a very real chance that Democrats find a way to take back the House, and there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of Republicans would vote to impeach Trump, especially if the situation continues to deteriorate.
And I would not doubt that his, quote, friend Lindsey Graham, who I don't think is his friend.
No.
And Lindsey Graham has had some horrible things to say about the president after he lost the election, quote, lost the election. And yet he brings him into his inner circle and is seen running around golfing with him, which, again, is really bad for the encouragement of the base. But I think Lindsey Graham will vote to impeach him in the Senate. What do you say? Well, impeach is in the House, convict is in the Senate. I think Lindsey Graham would vote to convict him if I had to guess today. Do you?
Yep. Yeah, I don't think Lindsey Graham is a friend to Donald Trump or the United States, certainly not to our Constitution, certainly not to our military. The guy never saw a foreign war that he didn't want to send your kids to go die in. And frankly, Lindsey Graham, I think, is one of the worst when it comes to Republicans. His voting record is atrocious. I encourage people to look it up on the Freedom Index. At the New American, we give a report card for every member of Congress, and Lindsey Graham is consistently at the bottom of the barrel. I wonder why he was on Air Force One with Donald Trump. And I was very saddened to see Trump endorse him in his bid for re-election. There's a good candidate running against him. And it just makes you wonder how Trump could continue to make mistakes like these. It's, right now Lindsey Graham's all giddy because of the thing in Venezuela, and he's thinking maybe we'll have an opportunity to do some more regime change things in Iran or somewhere else. But, Lindsey Graham is in it for Lindsey Graham and his globalist masters, not to make America great again, certainly not to put America first.
Coach Tommy Tuberville, who is also a U.S. Senator from Alabama running for governor, we had the chance to interview him on Capitol Hill live in person in May. He's now putting out that Tim Walz is directly responsible for up to $9 billion in fraud. He can't just run into the sunset. He needs to be thrown in prison. You want to take a scale of 1 to 10. 10, he goes to prison. 1, he does not. What do you bet? What do you bet on that one? I'm thinking he doesn't go to prison.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him arrested. At this point, it's very obvious that he was involved in these criminal activities. The question is, will the very, very, very corrupt judiciary allow something like that? And I think the answer, unfortunately, is no. In fact, I think there's real questions about whether this prosecution of Maduro is going to go anywhere. We saw what they did with Comey. We saw what they did with Letitia James. I suspect the federal judiciary will do everything possible to throw cold water on all of this so that things can get back to normal once Trump is gone.
And what do you think the United Nations is going to say about all this?
Well, we know the United Nations is very mad. They are saying that Trump is violating international law and that we need to respect the rules-based world order and the UN Charter. So, frankly, when you're making the UN mad, you got to be doing something right. But I was very glad to hear our Secretary of State and our National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, say, I don't care what the UN says. So we need much more of that. We shouldn't even be in that wicked institution.
Absolutely. All right. Any other things that you want to bring up real quick here that well, I got a tweet coming out here. Let's get this. Protesters are openly calling for the destruction of ICE, the U.S. military-industrial complex, prisons, and what they claim are fraudulent insurance corporations, saying they intend to take power back for the people while voicing support for Palestinians in Gaza, January 7th, tonight. This is all kind of fitting right in with the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Remember that movie we talked about?
Yep, predictive programming. And there was a new documentary. I've been talking to people all day about it today. A new documentary just dropped 8 or 9 days ago. It's a masterful piece of propaganda. They'll show a clip of some KKK leader saying, like, for God and country. And then they put up General Flynn where he says, for God and country. And then they show a dead body for emotional effect, some Nazi killed. And they're trying to make people think that it's all one. They are preparing this narrative. They've been preparing it for years. I did an episode of my show Behind the Deep State 3 years ago now, where I warned that they were conditioning Americans not just to accept a civil war, but to participate in one. And I think we're getting closer to that by the moment. So we've really got to be on our guard, folks. Your neighbor is not the enemy. The guy who watches too much CNN and has been deceived is not the enemy. The enemy is Satan and his minions and the people who are trying to destroy family and church and liberty and all that is good.
Indeed. Here's his website. Take a look at that. Liberty Sentinel. You can see all the articles he has over there. LibertySentinel.org. LibertySentinel.org. He also writes for the New American Magazine, and we carry his broadcast here on the weekends as well. LibertySentinel.org. Alex Newman checking in tonight. Alex, as always, thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Brandon. God bless you.
You too, my friend. Alex Newman checking in, guys, and we'll be right back after this short break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Thank you, guys, for your support, as always. Hey, be sure to go to worldviewstore.com. Order up a pack of the free business cards. Pass them out. worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. Get a pack of free business cards and pass them out to your family and friends. And let them all know about Worldview Tube. Worldview Tube. And again, thank you for your prayers. And continue to pray that our site can stay up, folks, and that these vendors will stop pulling the tricks they're pulling. All right? May God save America. Take care.
faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work,